one, I want to welcome everybody here. I think this is the inaugural class, and I think it's a great thing. It's a great opportunity for veterans, really, to try to pull together, not only go through a course of 8 weeks taught by JD, so he's going to teach you battlefield, right? The battlefield being how to transition your military experience and experience you already have in the corporate sector into startups. I think so. If you meld those two things together, I think really there's a great opportunity for great things in the future. But I will say, you know, startups is not for the faint of heart, so you better understand those things that you're walking into. But I think if this, as well as a mentorship or an internship, if it leads to that, I think it would be absolutely beneficial for veterans as we move forward. So, with that said, I won't say much more because I'll let JD get most of the talking, so I guess I'm going to do some.
Thank you, Colonel. We're going to have Paul Roben speak next. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. 25 minutes, sir. 25. After their
Okay, well, first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you to Colonel Patterson and everybody here at Pendleton for allowing us to come up here to Pendleton and talk to all of you guys. And thank you all for coming. I think it's going to be a fantastic course. JD is a force of nature. But you're probably wondering, well, first of all, who am I and why am I here, right? So, my name's Paul. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Innovation at UC San Diego. And you're probably wondering, what the hell is UC San Diego doing? I guess to explain that, how I should start is by saying that down at the university, we take very, very seriously our responsibility to drive social and economic prosperity in the region. To basically help to drive the economy, right? We have one thing in San Diego that most places don't have, and that's the military. I don't know if you know this, but the military here makes up about a quarter of the regional economy, so it's a little bit over $50 billion. That's across all branches, because I believe there's other branches over there in the Marine Corps. The innovation economy also is about $50 billion here, so together we make up about half of the economy. And at the university, we are absolutely convinced that together we can drive the economy of this region to new heights, so that, you know, at the end of the day, that there's more than enough high-paying jobs for you, for your families, for everybody in the region. And that's really what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to drive the economic prosperity in the region. My job on campus is, well, let me say as well, we're working with the military in a lot of different areas. So we had the Commandant actually down last month, and he spent a couple of days with us and his team talking about, you know, how can the university, through its students and its researchers and so on, help to bring more efficiency maybe to logistics, for example. So it's a good gear to your work. We also, like I spent, you know, these are just examples of things that we're doing. I spent most of Friday with the defense contractors in the region. We were specifically talking about how can the university, or what can the university do to help those transitioning service people that are within a year or two of leaving the service. What was it that the defense contractors actually needed to see of these people so that they could take full advantage of the jobs that were available down there? So these are the types of things that we're trying to do because we realize the value of the military to really doing something special here in San Diego that you can't do outside the country. So my specific role in the university is innovation and entrepreneurship. So the first thing I noticed the difference tonight to most of my nights, you guys were all on time, which is amazing. I normally deal with students, they come in an hour and a half late, they have a piece of pizza, they're working the iPhone, you know, it's very fun. So this is a different crowd, but we're trying to get at the same thing. So what I teach students is, or what my group teaches students, is really how to be innovative and creative. You can't teach creativity, obviously, but what you can do is give people the tools and let them explore their own creativity. So what we do on campus is we teach things the tools that you need, so leadership, team building, communication, storytelling, you know, all of these things that you need to be innovative and to be entrepreneurial. And then we set them up in spaces, actual physical spaces like this size of space, little bits of equipment, but most importantly, mentors, advisors, management teams, all of the very successful people from around San Diego, from the private sector, from the investment community, and other places, that sit with them and actually help them to develop their companies and their ideas. And the reason why I tell you all that is because that's all open to you guys. Any transitioning service person or veteran in San Diego can fully use all of those resources on campus anytime for free. We've opened it up to the veteran community here, the transitioning community campus. So, come and ask me. There's lots of things that we can help you with, lots of people we can connect you with. This particular course tonight, we were lucky enough to bump into JD because we wanted to do something different on the basis. And I'm delighted to be partnering with SmartMoney Veterans and JD because, as I say, he's a force of nature. But really what we're doing through this course, I think, and he's going to tell you a lot more about it, but you guys are already entrepreneurs for the most part, right? You're just doing it in a different kind of field than the business sector. I mean, you're already leaders, you already know how to work in certain circumstances, you already know how to manage programs. But what this course is going to help you with, I think, is to translate your skills into the business sector so that you can leverage what you already know and more easily be more successful as you go into the business sector. So that's really is that adequate? So that's really the outcome that we hope to see. There's loads of more resources after this course, whether it's through the university or through other places. We can help direct you to that and make connections for you and help you on your way. So we do build companies, I hope. So please do come and hold me to my word and make me do things for you. So with that, I think that's, and that's the last thing I'll say. This is a UCSD course, so you do get a UCSD certificate at the end of it. We'll have a nice little party at the end of graduation and so on down on campus. And we've got the campus certificate and so on. So I look forward to seeing you guys at the end. And with that, that's really all I had to say. If you have any comments, complaints, questions, happy to answer them or tell you anything more. And for now, I'm just going to hand it over to you, John and
Thank you all for being here tonight because it's the culmination of a lot of pushing a rock up or pushing a string up a hill, and there's a lot of people in the room that have participated and put into helping us make that happen. So I really want to thank everybody in the room that has helped us. It's certainly not a one-person endeavor at all, and so thank you to everybody. The main thing that Paul and Brianna and I sat down on the conversation in November was that the military in San Diego County represents a significant portion of the economy, and what we're finding is that many of those people are underemployed and underleveraged. And so I basically went to work and did a whole bunch of research I love, right? So I'm like, okay, what's already out there, what's needed, and what's not happening? And I think one of the main things was having a free program, and that's one thing that I'm not sure Paul mentioned. It is free, and you will get a UCSD certificate in entrepreneurship and startup fundraising. And the goal is to break down the barriers that primarily exist in the form of language, as well as understanding what it means when somebody sees on your LinkedIn profile you went to the Naval War College, or you were a Top Gun pilot, or you went to the Naval Academy and played football. I mean, we have some fantastic people in the room, both recent veterans and people that have been around for a while. And so I'm really blessed to have everybody in the room because this is actually the first event. And we hope to do this program 3 to 4 times per year. And you guys are all going to be a part of that. And so I'm really blessed by you being here. The whole purpose is to help military veterans. I spent 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps. That's how I paid for college. I was an enlisted guy. I was 3043 supply, so logistics, good off for. And it's interesting, as I started digging in and doing my research, one of the first things I did was I went to the MEA meeting, the Marine Executive Association, and I was blown away because there was one person there that had led 12,000 combat troops in Afghanistan. And he stood there basically saying, I get job interviews, I get down to the short list of 3 candidates, and then they basically say, well, gosh, the other 2 candidates have 10 years of commercial experience in this industry, and we can't afford to take the risk. And I'm like, okay, there's a language problem there for sure. but I could literally see body language wise that there was this, and he literally said, I need somebody to give me a chance. I was an enlisted Marine, and if I see a colonel up there saying, I need somebody to give me a chance, I'm like, something's wrong. There's a huge disconnect, and it's not that hard to connect the dots. So that is the entire purpose of why we're here, is to bridge that gap for that guy and others like him. I have a huge heart for Marines. I actually volunteer down at MCRD on Sunday mornings once a month. And I absolutely think that the task ahead of us is accomplishable. It's very doable. Because I think it's a matter of language and warm introductions and getting together in informal settings like this. Because so many times, your first conversation with a civilian employer is in an interview or a phone call. And that couldn't be more uncomfortable for both people. Because you don't speak the same language. You spent 20 years doing amazing things, or some, 5 to 10 years. And so it's not that hard to bridge the gap. And so I also think that the San Diego, and some of the research that I did is I found that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we should hire a hero and that's really cool, we're gonna do them a favor. I'm like, hold on a second, they're gonna do you a favor. Because the one thing that I know about a lot of businesses out there that don't have military people working in them is they have execution problems. In fact, I've been working in the startup world for 26 years, and the number one problem is execution. They're fantastic at coming up with creative problem-solving solutions and technologies and engineering and stuff like that, but one of the biggest reasons for the 85% failure rate is because they fail to execute on basic stuff. And that is what the military teaches people, ingrains in your minds. And I'm like, okay, I want to hire people. So, as Paul pointed out, the innovation economy more broadly. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about startups, but I also want to broaden the conversation to talk about innovation in general because it touches companies of all sizes, right? Ask somebody that owned a big taxi company if they think the technology impacts their business, right? Ask the people at, ask the people that run Marriott if Airbnb is taking a chink out of their business, right? Innovation impacts businesses of all sizes, and it also impacts businesses in every single industry out there. So there's a combination of, yes, if you want to start a company, we can help you do that, and that's a big part of what we teach, but also, if you go get a job in a big company, you need to understand how innovation happens, because those large companies are making investments in small companies, and they're also acquiring those companies and bringing them in. So regardless of what your chosen career path is, this knowledge is really going to help. The innovation economy in San Diego, UCSD Connect does an annual report on how much innovation contributes to our economy. $55 billion of GDP in San Diego County alone, right? The wages, if you take the average wage in San Diego County and innovation jobs, 210% higher wages, right? That's huge. The jobs are growing rapidly, and it depends on which survey you look at on how many jobs there are in the innovation economy, but about 150,000, and they're growing rapidly. And every year, we create over 400 new companies in the San Diego region. So this is a rich opportunity for people coming out of the military, and I want to make sure that you understand what that landscape looks like so that you can navigate it. And that's why when Paul asked me to put this program together, I'm like, well, yeah, business is just another battlefield, right? There's a language, there's a landscape, and it's funny because when I teach civilians on how to raise money for their startup, because that's what I do. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and then I got my degree in accounting at Ohio State, and I've been in San Diego, I've been in California, mostly San Diego, for 26 years. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operating Officer, or CEO of 8 different venture capital-backed companies, and 6 of them had successful exits. 3 of them were initial public offerings, and 3 of them were acquired by larger companies. And I'm a deal guy. When you get right down to the bottom line, I love doing deals because it's not just the finance. As soon as you start to propose a transaction with somebody, you lift up the hood. Now you're looking at strategy, product, marketing, team, compensation, everything, right? So you get to touch everything, right? And when we formed 400 new companies, it's funny because I teach startup fundraising and I use an analogy for the military, right? So I tell them, okay, because entrepreneurs have this tendency when they're going out to raise money to have two strategies. They enter pitch fest competitions and they network. And it's just like this, I'm like, you don't have a plan, you don't have a target list, anything like that? No. And I'm like, okay. So I tell them, I was like, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, right? If you're gonna go into the Korengal Valley in Afghanistan and you're gonna find out the good guys and the bad guys and kill them all and kill the bad guys, find the good guys and plant the flag at the top of the hill, you don't just start going in and shooting, right? You do your homework first. You do some reconnaissance, right? So I said, we're gonna do the same thing when it comes to startup fundraising, right? There are some high value targets and we're gonna find out who they are. And what I mean by that is there's 265,000 active angel investors in the United States. You think you're gonna find the right ones by entering a couple of pitch fest competitions and networking? That's ridiculous. You're gonna waste enormous amounts of time, right? So the very first thing that we do is identify who are the highest value targets. And so I use that as an analogy with civilians and they're like, wow, I get it, right? And so we're gonna take the same approach to go in the other direction. The other thing is in the last, so I ran a report. I'm a deal guy, right? I follow deals, right? I ran a report in the last 12 months in San Diego County alone, how much venture capital was invested? That's the question that I queried on a couple of different databases. $1.1 billion of new money going into startup or rapidly growing companies. And you know what most of that money is going to go towards? Jobs. If you want to find the jobs, ask me for the list of companies that just raised all this money, because I guarantee you every single one of them is hiring. And I did it by industry category, and if you'd like me to send these to you later, I'm happy to do that. I'll send you the whole list too if you want. So overall, that's why I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to just have a startup class. I want to develop veterans. In fact, my high and lofty goal when I, first came back to Paul and was proposing is developing human capital, one veteran at a time. Because you can throw cash at a lot of problems, but everybody will tell you in the startup investment community, you bet on a team. Because a team that can execute is able to pivot and get the job done no matter what. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Right? So there's a lot of commonality, but we just need to understand the common language. And so I want to help develop, what is there, like 270,000 veterans in the San Diego region. And I don't know exactly the numbers, like 200,000, 470, anyway, hundreds of thousands of people that have outstanding leadership skills and execution skills to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and this innovation economy needs that. So the goals, economic sustainability is where we're starting, right? You all have served your country admirably, and you deserve to have a solid shot, but not just to get a job and, good luck, I hope it goes well. I want to help create career pathways so that you have long-term economic sustainability. Because I don't do like one little project, that's just not in my blood, right? Let's put you on a career path to success because everybody wins in that scenario. Secondly, how do we leverage your military training and experience so that you can be successful in the civilian world? Because I can tell you, there are hundreds of startup entrepreneurs out there right now who would kill to have a great project manager who would be able to come in and make sure that stuff gets done so that they can go do their creative thing, right? And it's funny because I am that guy with my own company. We are a startup. And I'll give you a very recent example. So we're fortunate enough to have a small advisory board, most of which are in the room right now, and we had a planning session at the library. We got a free conference room with a whiteboard and everything, and we were just, we were planning this event, right? And we had like 4 big categories and a bunch of brainstorming. We were there for like 2.5 hours. It was getting hot and everything, and like I had brain gums, right? And all of us brainstormed. So you get to the end, I'm like, oh my god, okay. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to the restroom, and then when I come back, we've got about 10 minutes, and let's put together our action items, right? I went to the restroom, and I came back, and the colonel had everything locked and loaded, ready to go. He had the action items, he had a list, and he followed up every single day. And he sent me a couple of nastygrams that I needed to get to light a fire under my butt to get my deliverables done. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I volunteered to join the Marine Corps at 18 because I knew I needed a kick in the ass from a drill instructor, right? Well, guess what? Entrepreneurs need a kick in the ass from a colonel that knows how to get a job done, right? That's a perfect example of, and he even said, I don't really understand all this, digital, Wi-Fi, whatever, HTML. I'm like, I can teach you that, right? It's words, right? But managing projects and milestones and deliverables, you guys do that better than anybody in the world, and it's desperately needed in this $50 billion economy in San Diego. So we're going to cross that bridge together. So we're going to empower both you and the employers and the investors in the region so that we can actually make this a kick-ass economy for everybody. So there's abundant opportunities, but there's a fundamental problem, and this is what my existing business on the civilian side, our entire purpose for existing is the fact that 85% of startups fail. And the measuring stick is, somebody puts in $1 million, did the investors get at least $1 million back? Dollar for dollar, right? No return, right? 85% of companies, 85% fail to do that. And like in the innovation economy, like, correct me if I'm wrong, man, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's just the way it is. I'm like, no! I'm not okay with that. And so I'm 53 now, right? And I'm looking at, I'll never retire, right? But at 63, I'll probably want to downshift and travel a little bit, right? So what do I want to do with the next 10 years, right? I could probably do 2 more companies, right? 2.5 or whatever, right? Whatever, like, no. I want to help 10,000 people per year. So we're doing a lot of classes with a lot of people at a low price point, right? And the whole mantra is, how do we solve this 85% failure rate? Because it's one thing if the big institutional investors want to write off 85% of their money because, well, as long as I get into Uber and I make 10,000 times my money, who cares? Okay, well, that's your decision, that's your money. However, it's not the only cost of that 85% failure. There's a human cost. Because you're talking about the team spending 4+ years of their lives investing time, blood, sweat, tears, stress, excess weight. Soccer games are missed. Relationships are strained. You lay awake at 2 o'clock in the morning wondering if you're going to make payroll, trying to solve this problem and that problem. It's one thing if investors want to throw away 85% of their money, but if you're going to give money to people and give them a job for 4 years and set them up for failure, I'm not okay with that. That's why this company exists, and that's why we're here, because I think you all are actually part of the solution. Because if all we have to do is tighten up the buckles on execution, well, let's do it. So that's kind of how we're going to solve it. Call it Marines. And complementary skill sets. We're going to talk a lot about this. Innovators are great problem solvers, but they suck at execution. And I'll admit that. I can do it great for somebody else's business, but I can't do it for my own. It's really funny, but that's it's a team sport, right? Veterans know how to execute the mission. And there's one other piece, the communication side, right? In the military, if something goes wrong and you're not going to be able to, seal this line over here on the right flank, you better pick up the radio and tell the commander what's going on so that you can figure out a solution to the problem, right? In the startup world, some people are good at that, about 15%. And the rest of them are afraid to communicate about, oh, we're going to miss our revenue number this quarter. Oh shit, what do we do? Oh my God, I can't tell the investors that. Really? You're not going to get fired because you missed the revenue number. You're going to get fired because you're playing hide the ball with information. That is a problem that we can solve. So it's not just execution discipline, it's also communication. And so we're going to talk about how this feeds into the idea for this apprenticeship program, which UCSD is behind 100%. So it's not just a class, it's education, it's apprenticeship, and it's network access. So I already sat down with a number of the leaders of Biocom, San Diego Venture Group, the Maritime Alliance, all these industry groups out there, they want you, right? And so at graduation is the one event we're going to try to bring everybody together, but we're going to have multiple of those events. We're going to have guest speakers come in, and I'm going to ask you guys to write down what types of guest speakers you want to come in. We're going to have live, in addition to the class, like you're going to get an email that says, you know what, hey, next Thursday, we're going to have XYZ person on a Facebook Live Q&A. You can send us your questions now, and you can also ask questions live as well. I mean, like, I don't do it halfway. We either do it or we don't, right? So the objectives, when they give you the lay of the land, so you can understand not just the startup landscape, but the innovation landscape. Also learn this targeted fundraising thing that I touched on briefly, because that's one of the biggest weaknesses with startup entrepreneurs is they have great ideas, but they don't know the first thing about raising money, managing a board of directors, and building a team that scales fast, right? But this is stuff that we actually know how to do. People like Amanda and I, and other people in the room who have done it. Like, there are best practices and lessons learned that you don't have to repeat, right? These guys over here have got a real estate online education program, and they're doing a lot of things right, and we can help them prevent a lot of mistakes that they don't have to repeat, because guess what? Other people have already paid that price, right? Adapt your strategic planning skills, which are really valuable. Leverage your strength and execution, and then provide a mission. We're going to talk briefly about that. So, 8 modules, 8 weeks, Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Very simple. Webinar. If you miss it, we'll record it, and you can watch it later as well. And then we're going to have like a special LinkedIn group, so we can share information. I'm going to post a whole bunch of videos up there. I was looking at videos last night with Steve Jobs, and people that are inspiring in the innovation space and create a lot of jobs and a lot of wealth that puts you on that pathway to economic sustainability for the long term. Who are the players, right? So you got the investors, you got the corporations that are buying you, you got investment bankers, you got lawyers, you got entrepreneurs, you got CFOs, you got lawyers. All of these are the players, right? So you're smart, right? But if you never played on that playing field or that battlefield, you need an overview of the landscape. And so that's exactly what we're going to provide. How many people have ever played the game Catan? Or what was it called? Yeah. So, like, you got to understand the landscape, right? But the principles are the same. You have a mission, you're going to have obstacles, you have a team, all that kind of stuff. Who are your allies and who are your enemies? And it's funny because the enemies aren't necessarily just people. They're not just your competitors in business. The enemies are lack of focus. 16 ideas and executing on 10 of them and sucking at all of them. That's one of your enemies, right? The psychological enemies, just like in sports, right? I mean, any sport, a lot of it is psychology, so we're going to talk about that. What are your strategic assets? Every business has a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we're going to talk about exactly how to do that. The risk profile we know is high. We're going to highlight specifically what are your risks in your business, in your industry, and how do you de-risk them. And then at the end, how do you plant the flag? What does planting the flag in the startup world look like? What does success look like, and how do we get there, and how do we celebrate? So those are the 8 modules that we're going to cover. And so I'm going to be teaching, Amanda's going to be teaching some as well. Amanda is an Air Force veteran, and she has been a force in Silicon Valley and here in San Diego. She's a woman angel investor and advisor. She also is the founder of Insurance Civil Disability. See? Civil disability insurance, so it crosses all kinds of industries, but Amanda is one example of a lot of people that we're pulling in from industry. So write down your list. So Stacy, right, she's the PAO for 20 plus years, right? We were talking about marketing and communications, and oh my gosh, if there's one thing startup entrepreneurs need is marketing and communications, because they believe that if you build a better mousetrap, everybody's going to come to your door, and that's bullshit. It's not true. You need marketing and communications. And I don't just want to teach people how to start a startup, because not everybody has the same family profile, right? If you have 2 young kids and your spouse doesn't work, and you're the sole income earner, and you did 10 years and you're getting out, so you got no pension, I will not do the irresponsible thing and show you how to become a first-time founder, because that's the highest risk pathway you could possibly go down, and I won't do it. But what I will do is teach you about the innovation economy, and during the program, we're going to do an assessment of what your greatest strengths and weaknesses are. We're also going to do an assessment of your personal and family financial risk profile. And then you're going to have 4 potential pathways. You might go get a job, in which case you're going to take your new innovation knowledge to that job. Or you may want to start a small business that is never going to actually raise money from investors, which is fine and great. But there's a difference between a small business and an entrepreneur that's going to go raise $2 million in venture capital. 2 very different scenarios. Doing the research, I also found that there are huge opportunities in the franchise business, right? There's the Franchise Association of America has over 100 companies that have franchise opportunities, and they offer discounts on that upfront fee from between 10% and 100%. Like you could go open a Papa John's franchise for, like, it's a $50,000 franchise fee, and they're like, oh, we'll give it to you for free. Well, geez, if that's what you want to do, that's huge, right? And so that's part of what we're going to bring to the table is, you know, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to point you in the right direction. And then track 4 is what I call fundable startups, right? As distinct from a small business who's not going to raise money from investors or not a lot, right? Fundable startups. Now, you don't just have to be, if you want to play in that space, you don't just have to go be a first-time founder. So we've created 3 tracks underneath that. First-time founder is high risk, high reward, right? And some of you have the stomach for it, some of you have the finances for it, but some of you, quite honestly, maybe not right now, right? Another risk, you could become a startup team member, right? Maybe you could be part of the management team of a startup. And then there's this new thing that we created called an Apprentice Program. So we have about 100 people in our program on the commercial side of my business that we brought through our startup fundraising course, and then there's a community that goes on after that, and they all need help with various things, managing milestones, managing communication, right? They all need a kernel to say, hey, did you get that thing in or not, right? And so what we're going to do with this Apprentice Program for people that are interested and we are able to identify these opportunities is, remember, the innovators are great at creative problem solving, but execution is what veterans are great at. So we already have 5 people signed up for this, and there's 3 phases. Phase 1 is we're going to basically do, you know how like when they have the police and you go do a ride-along, right, to see what it's like? So we're going to do that live in class. We've already got at least 3 companies, I think, in our class that we're going to use for case studies. Because we've already done some preliminary work in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to use them as case studies, and we're going to say, okay, this is the investor research that needs to be done. We need about 15 to 20 hours of research to be done, and I'll show you how to do that, right? And then you're going to get to do a part of it, right? But during phase 1, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's going to be free, because it's kind of like if you want me to fix your transmission, it's $600, but if you want to help, it's $1,200. Right? It's going to slow us down, right? But there will be a turning point where actually you're going to be like, oh wow, hey, I got this, because I was training some of these guys, and they said, well, this is just targeting. We do this in Intel all the time. I'm like, exactly. It's not that hard, right? So if you get to that point where you can actually speed us up and we can take on 10 new clients next month, well, then there's going to be some compensation. You can do it part-time or full-time. We'll figure that out, right? And then if we do this right, then we can take on 25 new clients, and Amanda's going to help us gang tackle them all and bring them in and manage all this stuff, because she's an outstanding execution manager too, right? Then we can actually create jobs within smart money startups, right? So how long will it take? I don't know. We'll find out together. Here's the types of projects, and they're in your folder on there. There's all kinds of projects that need to be done, and there are startups at UC San Diego right now. They have 9 incubators at UC San Diego, because the MBA school, the Brady MBA school, has an incubator. The Jacobs School of Engineering has their own incubator. The medical school has their own incubator, and on and on and on, right? And some of the startups there have received grant funding from various government agencies and private foundations, right? So they actually have, those in that category actually have a little bit of money to spend. So if we go in and say, okay, we're going to charge you, okay, so we're going to do a 25-hour consulting gig to help you with your research and do your SWOT analysis and your investor research at X hourly rate, then I think we can make that work, right? There are also others that are student projects that don't have any funding, and we'll figure out how to sort of tuck them in here and there, and then we've got commercial clients on the business side as well. But this is just like off the top of my head, the types of projects that we can do. We can do small, medium, or large, depending upon how much appetite and wallet we have. So, we're going to take a whole bunch of questions. So the next steps. So we've already got about 25-ish people signed up for the program, but register in the next 48 hours, and we're going to kick off next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. It's a webinar. Anybody can attend. If you miss it, we'll record it, right? So 48 hours from right now to get final registration in, so please tell people about this program. It's free. Paul's picking up the tab. Yeah, right, Paul. Yeah. The first class is April 17th, next Tuesday, 7 p.m. At the midpoint, in about the first week of May, we're going to have the class at UC San Diego, and we're going to take a poll and figure out like what kind of those resources and facilities that Paul described do you want to see, right? For example, they have a maker lab, right? Brianna, describe the maker lab.
It's the one lab I haven't actually been in. So they have, the makers lab on campus have tools and resources for personnel and from the tools perspective to go and actually do or create prototypes of whatever your ideas are. In the 3D printing labs, we have computers that provide space and resources and kind of a little bit of everything for people who are getting ready to start or build their ideas.
Excellent. And we'll basically, before that midpoint class comes up, we'll, come in with a list of like, here's all the stuff. Okay, so, for a couple of hours before we have the class in session at UCSD, we'll say, what do you guys want to see? And Brianna will be happy to give us a tour, or one of the people on their staff, and we can go see that maker lab. We can go see the basement, which is the undergraduate incubation place. And there's all kinds of cool resources there to go check out. And then the big event, and this is where I really want to ask for all of your help. Spread the word, because we want to have a big graduation event during the first week of June. There's 2 dates that are in your schedule in that folder somewhere. We're holding 2 dates, and we're trying to get everybody all lined up and get the planets aligned so we can get all these great people to show up. But I need all of your help to promote that on social media. It's open to anyone, and it'll be a great way to promote the next cohort or the next group that we're going to go through this 8-week course. Because as I said, we're going to try to do it 3, maybe 4 times a year, but we definitely want to start seeding that next class. And also, if you know anybody that can be a sponsor, we definitely need sponsors. So there's a lot of companies out there who would love to be a part of this. Maybe they would want to come in and be a guest speaker. They could participate with all different sponsorship levels, just like any other event that you would expect to see. Everybody in this room, and just about everybody that you know has any touch point with the military, can get involved. We need students or participants in the class, and we need sponsors, and we need mentors, right? Like Giselle's been in the real estate business for a long time. If anybody's interested in real estate, like you guys already have that connection, right? Well, that's just one, right? We're going to go get Stacy plugged in with, some of the communications groups in town. I can already think of like 3 people right now at the top of my head from my Rolodex that I'm going to introduce you to. And so we're going to ask those people to, enter into mentorship with us. And then affiliates. This is an important one. Most of you know the Honor Foundation, all these other groups that are supporting veterans right now. If they are a nonprofit, they qualify to become an affiliate of this group for free, no money. All we do is exchange logos and co-promote each other's events. That's it. no money, right? The whole goal is to bring these resources together in one place so you guys don't have to hunt and peck and figure out this silo or that silo and all that kind of stuff. So the goal of this graduation is let's get everybody in the same room together, right? So thank you to everybody at UCSD and the advisory board people, and we do have affiliate partners. I don't know if Steve Fisher was not able to make it, but we've got the Marine Executive Association, we've got Working Wardrobes, and we've got, we're talking to like 5 or 6 other ones right now. I sat down with the head of the Maritime Alliance. Another group that you may not be familiar with is the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And that is one of the hottest job growth areas right now for military because that is the new battlefield in cybersecurity. And the Maritime Alliance, like their jobs prediction for the next 5 years in San Diego County is like ridiculous. Like they need like, I don't know, 50,000 people in different, they call it blue tech jobs, stuff that has to do with water, right? And so, yeah, now I'm sure there's lots of questions, so bring it on. And everybody, we can get Paul to answer some of the questions, we can get Amanda. We've got a lot of resources in the room, so let's leverage them. Questions?
Good evening, Wayne White. This isn't so much a question, but a comment regarding blue tech. In the books, whether you may be familiar, it's called 90% of everything. And it speaks to the fact that wherever this came from, it probably arrived on a boat. And raw materials were shipped somewhere else, produced, put back on the boat, then they ended up here. So that idea behind blue tech, I'm a little bit involved on the fringe of that.
Great.
But to that point, that's really relevant.
Absolutely, yeah. I sat down with Michael Jones, who's the chairman of the Maritime Alliance of Southern California. And man, they got a lot going on. Like he's going international, all that kind of stuff. And I know Paul, the university, has an alliance with them as well. So industry groups. How many people know the San Diego Venture Group? So if you don't, and you're interested in innovation, you definitely should know. On the 11th, Wednesday night, they're having an event in Carlsbad. So I definitely recommend showing up. And if we get, like, if you want to, I don't know, it's like $50 or something like that, I'm confident that if I get a list of the names of 10 veterans that want to show up, I can get 10 free tickets. I mean, I can't promise that, but I'll twist Mike's arm to make sure that we're able to make that happen. Because part of it is just diving into the pool and meeting these people in informal settings. And spread the word. I mean, just send people to the website. Everything that they need will be there to get started. Go ahead, Brianna.
I actually just wanted to make a comment that was dancing around the bush a little bit, but at your graduation ceremony, just so you know what UCSD is committed to, we're working on bringing in local legislators, state legislators, and congressmen from, obviously from DC, to come in and really showcase what veterans are doing here in San Diego, and hopefully to help make those connections, because those level of individuals also bring the corporations that you want to talk to and the recruiters that you want to talk to. So we're working on something that hopefully will be more than just a shindig. We're really to a community that you're really wanting to connect with and ultimately anyways.
Absolutely. I mean, part of it is just getting all the right, it's funny, I say this about startup companies, right? Get the right butts in the right chairs at the right time, and that's how you have a successful startup company. It's kind of the same thing here, right? Let's just get, the right people in the right room, and make sure they know who each other is, or are, and connect the dots. What other questions? I'm sure people have questions. Please, go ahead.
So, I've actually worked with an incubator type program at San Diego State. So I just know that they have been going on in all these different universities around the county. I guess we're starting at UCSD. I'm sure that UCSD has partnerships with several other universities, so this could be a potential growth with some of those other incubator programs. Is that correct?
Yes, we talked about that. Mike Lawless, who runs the program at USD, and he's a veteran as well. He was going to be here tonight, but he had a conflict. But Paul, I'll let you address this. I mean, this is about the San Diego region, and this is about the military workforce development for everybody's good. So there's kind of a collaborative environment that we're trying to create. See? You just gotta hang out with me more.
Yeah, we, SUSU and us and the other 7 or 8 large research institutions in town meet every month to talk about all of this kind of stuff. So everything that we do with you, flows out to the other institutions. So if there's anything you want us to do in terms of connecting the dots there, that's very easy. We speak the same language.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Paul is on the board of the advisory board of the Alliance for Southern California Innovation. And
everything from Santa Barbara to San
exactly. And that's a big deal. It's a different topic. I don't want to get off track. But that's an exciting opportunity that we should definitely talk about because they probably need some communication help. Go ahead, Chris.
Maybe just a thought, give everyone a chance to either go to the bar or maybe go to the bathroom and maybe get some food, but it'd be neat to kind of go around the room and just find out who are you and why you're here.
Yes.
Because I've got my own story, you've got your story, I know Paul's got his
Yep.
story, but you're all here for a reason, and I think what brings us to this space is to kind of do what we're all trying to do together. And Amanda's a veteran, you're a veteran, right? So Mike and I are veterans, so I'm here because I want to help support veterans, but I also want to get smarter in the startup space that I'm not really comfortable with. So I think just take a break and then maybe come back and find out what everyone's story is.
Just because a bunch of your companies there, I want to echo what JD said. You don't have to start a company to be innovative. We had the 10 biggest defense contractors in town around the table. One thing that they all said they needed from you people was innovative and strategic thinking. That's what they need, number one. So this applies whether you're starting companies, whether you're into it for NASA, whatever it is.
So that's a perfect segue because I stopped and I got these index cards. And since we've got everybody in the same room, let's leverage this as much as we can. So on the colored cards, I want you to write down what are the unmet needs. What are the things that need to happen in order for us to create the kind of leverage for economic growth both in the region and create jobs and not just create jobs, but how do we bridge the gap where I know a lot of people are frustrated about, well, geez, I go into this interview and they don't really understand what the heck it means that I led 12,000 Marines into combat. I'm like, it's hard to understand about that, but you understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of great programs out there. And we're going to partner with all of them. But on the colored cards, please write down unmet needs. And I'm not saying we're going to solve all of them, but I'm saying we can point you to those. We'll solve some of them, and we'll point you to the other ones. On this card, write down questions that you still have that were not yet spoken. And let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and have a little dialogue about that. Does that sound good? Awesome.
So last night we were implementing